Hi everybody, welcome back to Southern Latitudes. I'm Robin, and today I am coming to you with a special topic about hurricane preparedness. And what are you going to do when a hurricane comes to you and you've got tomatoes and peppers and okra and you got all your summer stuff still in season? What if you got fruit trees? You got permaculture. What are you going to do? What should you do? Maybe you're new to Florida. Maybe you're new along the coast in the Carolinas. Maybe you're new around the Gulf of Mexico in one of those states. I thought I should do maybe a video that would help you guys see what I do and what I've been doing for 13 years in my yard. All right, stay tuned. In no particular order, we have my Barbados cherry tree, and as you can see, it's got some nice little blooms on it. But this toppled over in the last thunderstorm, and it didn't break or anything, but it was a great warning sign that I needed to do something now before a storm comes up, either unexpectedly or hurricane comes. We are in hurricane season right now. Actually, we're a month in, and then a few extra days too. And it started June 1st. And we have to think about these things for about 3-4 months of our year if you live in Florida. So as you can see, I have put in a green stake, just one of these fence posts. Pick them up at any big box store, like a Home Depot's or Lowe's or Ace Hardware or True Value, whatever you got near you. And I like to do this, which is we use metal wire, but we have a piece of tubing around it to protect it as it rubs, because in the wind you're going to get quite a bit of rubbing on your branches in your trunks, your little trunks. And so we want to make sure we protect that. This one, I'm probably only going to do one. I have thought about resecuring a little bit more up here. I may do that today, but for sure it needs one extra. These can move. The reason why I'm not so concerned is these can move with the wind. If it looks like it's going to be a Cat 3 or 4 hurricane, this might be more important to loosely tie to the stake. But for sure, we want to make sure nothing gets toppled. We should be fairly protected in this corner because we have a lot of fencing here, but you might not have fencing where you're at. Okay, so let's talk banana trees in a storm next. So I never touch my banana trees. Now these are just dwarfs, and I don't have experience with large, like 15-foot banana trees, but I don't believe I've ever seen anybody ever stake a banana tree. And let me show you why. I know these look like big leaves that'll catch the wind, but let me show you what they will do in a storm. They will, see how that's already cut in a few places? They will actually, it's just like they were designed to cut along these little ridges. And this will look like fringe after a hurricane. So don't worry about your banana trees. You got a beautiful little rock on that one. Yeah. Well, typically in Florida in particular, because I can't speak to like Texas or any of the other coastal states, or maybe up the eastern seaboard, but in Florida in particular, most of our gardens have gone to sleep except for tomatoes and peppers and maybe specific heirloom seeds that are better suited for heat, which some of these are. I've got collards in here. I've got a zucchini rapicante squash that is Italian variety made for heat. I have the dinosaur kale, and then I just have some flowers. So what would I do in this scenario if a hurricane came? I probably wouldn't do anything right here. I'm not going to stake up that collards. I'm just going to, generally if it's like a foot or lower, I don't do anything with it. It was probably a good 15 to 18 years ago. We had this back when my boys were younger, we had just a kid's kickball in the backyard. in the middle of a hurricane, Hurricane Charlie to be exact, and that ball did not move 1 inch in the grass. So that was a good lesson to me. It was probably aerodynamic, yes, but also sometimes things very, very close to the ground don't move. It's the things that are up high that catch the wind that seem to be the most likely to pull off or damage or blow over or break apart, something like that. Here's my plumeria, and as you can see, it already has a pretty good lean to it. So I'm going to put in 2 stakes with this. Now, even without a storm, I think this is going to need staking up, because you can see it's quite leaning, and the weight of the new growth this past year has really pulled it to the side. So we're going to try to train it as well as protect it with some stakes. And much differently, I have a very small Persian lime right here, which will get no stake because it's more of a bush variety and it doesn't have a long trunk to it, so it's not likely. Plus it's protected next to the house and the porch, and a little bit of a windbreak from the boat barn, so it's not likely that it'll get blown over in a hurricane. This is what I call my salsa garden. I have 5 cattle panels, and 2 of them have a little something on the end, and I do have a very tall sunflower down there. It's already staked to the fence, so I wouldn't go ahead and stake it more. If a hurricane came today before it bloomed, I would probably just lose the top third of it that's unstaked, and that would just be a loss. The vines will probably do okay. They would lose their blooms. They might get some wind damage and lose a lot of leaves. That's things you can expect during a hurricane. And down here is my peppers and okra that are still going, and they'll be going strong through the whole summer. In years past, I've had hurricanes while I've had okra much higher than this, and the okra may survive it, but will have a lean to it afterwards. So you can, expect anywhere from leaning to being just fine. It just depends on your degree of severity in the hurricane. A 1 and 2, of course, we don't even look twice at those, and worry. That's no different than maybe our average, intense thunderstorm here, which happen pretty frequently in the hottest of months in Florida. Now, I do have cages up on these. This one got a little mangled because a big limb fell down on it. But overall, I think if you were, and what I do is I tend to put cages around every single one of my peppers, even though they're not real tall. I give them that support that their stem may need in high winds, rain, potential hail. This is my avocado tree, and as you can see, it's still young. It's only about 3 years old, and it has a very weak trunk, or at least it did when I very first put it in a year and a half ago. It has grown a little bit. Let me see if you can see that. It's now quite a bit more substantial in the growth it's had the year and a half here, but it's still kind of weak as far as hurricane. It is protected on 3 sides with fence, and this is board on board, so it won't allow a lot of airflow through the fencing right here in this corner. Since it was so unstable, we put in 2 stakes on it, 1 on each side, so it didn't matter what direction the wind was coming from, it was gonna be held down pretty well. And let me get you in here to see. Here's a little opening. We did the same technique. We took some wire, we ran it through tubing, and then the tubing is on each side of the main trunk. It has room to wobble and move. This one's not even that tight. It just is preventing it from going this way towards me. This one is supporting it quite a bit while the stem turned into a trunk. But it's even still, it has some give in it. So you don't really want like a death grip on your tree, if you will. But you definitely want to give it some support from toppling over. This one, like I said, probably is going to need a stake on it for a couple more years. If you need to use the 2 stake method, we'll just stack and lay these chairs down. That's not going to be a big deal. We've got the fire pit pretty much emptied out. By the time a hurricane goes by, it'll be full with branches. And when it's safe and the winds have died down and everything's picked up and cleaned up, we'll probably have a good burn and burn all the wood when it's allowed. But we're also abiding by all our city and county fire pit rules. In order to have a recreational burn, be sure that you check out your rules in your area. I do nothing for my pineapples. In fact, I just pulled all my pineapples in, but if they had fruit on them, I probably still would do nothing because, like I said, they're low to the ground. Again, also for any creeping squash or pumpkin or winter squash. I have here a very young acha plant, and while this does have a stake up on it, as you can see, I'll turn it, the stem itself is not very big or sturdy. In fact, most of it's still green, and we're training it. So this would come into the porch with us. I wouldn't bring it in the house, probably because I got so many. But if you have the room and the space, you can bring it in an inner patio or house or Florida room, something like that. Here I have a dwarf everbearing mulberry, and when they were little, I had a stake right here, which it's separated from. As you can see, it broke itself free, probably in one of these windstorms. And it's got a substantial trunk on it. It has a lot of bend, but I think this is always my cutoff number. If I saw Cat 3 or Cat 4 coming again, which we've had with Matthew and Irma the past couple of years, I would probably put in a more substantial, the green fencing stakes. I'll pull these out and use them somewhere else to support something smaller. These have a lot of flexibility, and they will probably take some wind damage, but I think overall just a little support on the trunk would be what they need during a severe hurricane. A lesser hurricane like a Cat 1 or 2, no, probably would just leave it. It's also got some fencing windbreak, but that wouldn't, help in all directions of the wind, but it does in this case. We're going to go through a couple varieties right here in this section. This is a Grimachami bush, and so I am not going to do anything with it. It's, again, fairly low to the ground. It's under 3 feet, but also it's a bush. It doesn't have a major stem to topple. Each one of those individual branches in it will sway with the wind, and it'll probably take a lot of rain and might even enjoy it. This tends to be a little bit higher and drier in this area of my yard. Now I had climbing oleander, which is just a flowering bush. It flowers once a year. It doesn't produce fruit. It's just really for attracting pollinators. But as you can see, the past 2 storms have already taken down a couple of the larger limbs. So that'll be my job today as I get hurricane proof to add. I won't probably tie it to this. As you can see, this is kind of flimsy trellising that you get with the store, and this plant is close to 2 years old, and or even closer. It may have been in the nursery for a year before I got it, but this is not enough support for it. So we'll come in here with a really tall green fence post. Use your judgment. I'll put 1 or 2 and attach these limbs to them. Over here I have roselle here, and I have roselle here. This one in particular is starting to go over 3 feet, and I have another one in another area of the yard. These are starting to need a post. So if you want to make it all the way to fall when these things produce their calyxes and fruit, and you can make hibiscus tea and whatnot with them. You're going to want to stake them up so they survive the hurricane season. And then you'll have a beautiful tree with a lot of greenery here, a lot of red fruits and white blooms, and it'll feel like Christmas is coming early. All right, let's talk about this, because every gardener has something like this. You may have a sturdy wooden table, you may have just anything, just something that you can set your stuff on, your gardening stuff on. It's become a resting place for old buckets and old pots and trays, and as you can see, I got my sprayer sitting on mine for days, and Jack had some pepper plants that he planted, and then I have some pots where things died and I still have yet to empty them. This would be a huge problem in a hurricane because those pots will come right off, of course the sprayer too. And then I just have garbage. I thought I was going to root those, but they didn't. So now is a good time before the hurricanes come to start looking around your yard and cleaning up your mess. So as it approaches, you don't have to worry about this. What I will do is today is probably stack all of these pots in order, so they're small to largest, get them all in one big roll, and as best I can. And I will put them inside a shed. You could put them in a garage, anything like that. But if you don't have something like that, here's the next best thing you can do is you can put them low. Maybe get some weight in them, something like that. But you would want to put them low against maybe your fence or your house to prevent them from blowing around. So this is my trellis garden, and as you can see, it's gone wild because it's got Seminole pumpkins growing, and so I can't cut the grass. And really, other than sweeping, I haven't done much else to maintain it. So if a hurricane came today, I would probably just leave it the way it's at and let the wind run over the trellises, through the trellises. You don't have to worry about that. I may suffer limb damage, because it's sitting underneath four pine trees. The entirety of the trellis garden. I have 5 trellises in here, so it could suffer some damage, which we have had that before, where a limb will come down and hit the trellises. You can usually bend the trellises right back like any other metal, and so I don't worry about that. And at this point, the Seminole pumpkins are low. There's some flowers in here. I'm not worried about saving any weeds, and really not worried about saving zinnia flowers. I do have a couple blackberry bushes on that makeshift trellis, and they're good to go. Really, it's not much to worry about. It's only in its 2nd year, but if you had a beautiful bush, use your judgment if you need some of these fence stakes. This is my moringa tree, and it had some stakes around it, but as I can see from the couple really bad thunderstorms we've had, it has broken free, and it's got a pretty big lean to it. And again, it's underneath these pines. So I want to probably pull these out and again put in one of these green fence posts or ties or stakes, whatever you want to call it. And it's growing. Wow, this thing has probably grown a good 4 feet in the past 3 months. It's growing very quickly, and that's typical for moringas. And so I want to make sure from here on out in its life that it has proper support, no matter if it's hurricane or thunderstorms or just a regular good gully washer. Again, small bushes that don't have trunks. Maybe they have flowers that come off. Maybe they have a little wind damage on their leaves. Something like this has a little bit thicker stalk. This might break, but I'm not going to stake it. These have all been through Hurricane Irma and have done just fine. That was a Cat 4 that rolled up our coast. This is musical notes. And so Yes, I'm not worried about these or any of my citrus bushes either. Like I said, these are pretty low and they probably won't suffer anything if a hurricane does come by the coast, or even if we took a direct hit, they may not have much damage at all. But they have fruit on them that's green, and they will have this fruit until the winter season when it ripens. This in particular is a Meyer lemon, but I also had key limes in here. We've already eaten all of them and it hasn't rebloomed. I just want you to be prepared that you may drop some fruit, and that's okay. As you see, there's no room to even stake this up. So it's a sturdy little compact 1 foot by 1.5 foot bush. So not much you can do there but the fruit is heavy. And so if it goes, it goes. And that's just part of living in a hurricane zone. This is my Eureka pink lemon, and it has a little bit of fruit left on it. It lost a lot of it in the, as you can see, there's one right there in the past couple thunderstorms. And it's young tree, so I didn't figure, I'd get a lot of fruit this year off of it. But it came with this little flimsy bamboo stake. And so I am definitely gonna, this limb and branch is actually more dominant and taller than this one that the stake is on. So I'll do my best to go ahead and come in here with a metal stake and fencing post or something and keep that tied up. I'm actually going to do a lot of my hurricane prep all this week before there's even the threat of a hurricane, because I will have enough to do with hurricane boards going up and whatever moving garbage, and a lot of times we'll take stuff to the dump that week of hurricanes and we just get stuff out of here. So it seems like about this time of year I start seeing discussion on chicken forums and gardening and homesteading forums. What do you do with your chickens if a hurricane comes? Well, what we're doing is we will probably leave them in this coop and just secure them down. I do have an inner, this is just the outer run, but I do have an inner coop with, I have doors at different places. So I have an outdoor door, then I have a door for me to come in, but then up in the coop, there's a door right in here that just keeps them enclosed in here. And I will go ahead and I will shut that door until the hurricane has passed. We'll come out here at the last possible moment when we think it's safe and shut that door. Say it's a day storm where it passes during the day. They may just want to stay out in it if it's a light storm, say Cat 1 or 2. But like I said, when you start talking about those destructive high winds where you're going to lose power and you're going to see limbs down and maybe trees over, what I do for my girls is I go ahead and make sure they're protected within a building. I've also heard people just letting them loose and let them find cover, but I'm in a suburban situation, so that's probably not the most practical thing for me to do. Another thing I do to prepare their coop, I make sure it's nice and clean. And on the inside, I put in fresh bedding and everything. They're going to be in there for a while. I have doors, or little windows, if you will, and so I will shut those to prevent the sideways rain from going inside the coop and getting them all wet. We don't want them to get sick with anything respiratory from being wet and cold inside that coop. I want to make sure that all your animal food is in a bin. It probably should be anyhow, because you just don't want rats and rainwater to get in it. But you definitely want everything secured down very well for a hurricane. You don't want any hay or treats or bedding perhaps to get wet. And I wouldn't feed my chickens while the hurricane is passing. What I would do is probably make sure they get plenty of food and fresh water all day, and then when you have to, like I said, lock them up inside their coop. Lock them up maybe 12 hours. That'll be, should be the most of and the worst of it. Usually it's not that long, but I mean, if it is, that's the worst of it, and you just let it go as is. They'll be okay, and then in the morning or after it passes before dark, let them out. Don't be surprised if your chickens are exhausted from the stress of the hurricane. After Hurricane Matthew came by, we let our chickens out, and they literally ran across the yard, went into the garden, and fell asleep. They were just tired. You can bring your chickens in the garage and perhaps they'll stress less. That was a particularly bad hurricane for us. It came extremely close. The eye wall itself of a Cat 4 came extremely close to our house. And we actually left town through the worst of it and came right back home. There was nowhere, I didn't want to leave my chickens in a garage in case it was too hot. So we left them in their coop, and we tried to put some protection on the sides, which blew right down in the wind, was worthless. And then a piece of their coop, one of the top walls, fell in also. So they probably had more stress than they should have in our older coop. My Harris, she fell asleep right in the, I think that was sweet potato vines. That was so cute. If you have any other outdoor critters, such as a bunnies, guinea pigs, whatever out here, we like to bring Lulu in. You don't have to, but they should be in somewhere where they're safe and secure and dry, have plenty of food and water, and that they're not stressing out either. This is my bush that fell over last week in the other storm. So we went ahead and staked that. Look at the beautiful flowers draping off of it. It's ready for a hurricane. And the salvia is looking good, but we will not do anything with that. Shrimp plants, cat whiskers. Not much you can do with any of these. And the cannas, well, they're just gonna, they've already seen a lot of rain. I'm just gonna clean them up and bring them back down to greenery, and then we'll start again after hurricane season. Okay, if you're like us, you've just gotten done having a wonderful 4th of July barbecue. You've had friends and family over to the pool. You've just entertained more than normal. So your porch may have tons of chairs on it, and fans, and grill covers, and grills, and little tables, and whatnots. So all your little decorations, maybe flags, and you know, things that twirl and what have you. All that stuff really needs to be put away as best as possible. A lot of times we'll take our chairs and we'll lay them on their sides so the high backs don't catch the wind. So what we'll do is we'll take tables and we'll put them on their side, or even put them on the tabletop into the ground so the wind just goes through the legs. The grill will pull into the inner porch and put it up against the side of the house wall. And any little knickknacks just come on in the porch, and like I said, as close to the house as possible, or in the house, or in a shed or a garage. So we do quite a bit of cleaning up on the porch as well as in the garden. All right, you guys, that's just what came to the top of my mind as I went around the yard and I was looking at things and what I would put away if something was approaching. But anyhow, if you have questions or additional information you would love to put below for other subscribers to look at, put them in the comments down there. And let's add to this list. Let's let it grow. So in the future years, when people see this video, they can see more and more and more ideas. That's what this channel's about. We're going to learn and grow together. Thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up and let my channel grow a little bit. And if you can, share. And if you'd like, leave a comment of encouragement or, like I said, helpful hints. Thank you. Take care. And we'll see you in the next one.